The U.S. in the past, as the world's most generous humanitarian donor, got a lot of credibility out of providing humanitarian aid. Other countries know that they can trust the U.S., and that two-way partnership means that the U.S. is able to rely on those partners and know that we can be relied on when there's a much greater challenge. Humanitarian aid creates long-lasting, sometimes decades-long, trusted bonds between countries. Now, that is being called into question. I'm Michelle Struck, Khosravi Chair in Principled Internationalism, Director of the Humanitarian Agenda, and Director of the Human Rights Initiative here at CSIS. And I'm here to talk about my recent white paper with Mark J. Cohen, What is Happening to U.S. Humanitarian Assistance? Will the United States continue to save lives? Our paper describes an interesting paradox. On the one hand, President Trump has decided to review foreign aid to ensure that it is meeting core U.S. interests, including making the United States safer, stronger, and more prosperous. The United States is the world's most generous humanitarian donor, and what that means is the U.S. comes to countries' aid when they are in a situation of conflict, like you see in Syria or Sudan, when they're facing issues like famine, like you see in Sudan and in Gaza, or they're facing a situation of an earthquake or a natural shock that has caused a huge disaster. So as the U.S. does the strategic review, the paradox is that they have talked about through a waiver that they issued, the fact that humanitarian aid should continue. The U.S. should continue to save lives. But on the other hand, the strategic review and the way it's been conducted has really cut off U.S. assistance at its knees. So our paper talks about the specific ways that the United States' current review has affected the long-term interests and short-term interests of the United States as a generous, credible actor in the world. And now is a critical time for the Trump administration and Congress to do everything in their power to mitigate the harm that was caused, maybe unintentional, address the humanitarian brain drain, and take actions that are going to preserve the parts of the humanitarian system, like disaster relief, that are so important that the administration knows are an essential part of our partnership and national interests in the world. There are a lot of dimensions of impacts of the aid freeze. The U.S. in the past, as the world's most generous humanitarian donor, got a lot of credibility out of providing humanitarian aid. Other countries know that they can trust the U.S., and that two-way partnership means that the U.S. is able to rely on those partners and know that we can be relied on when there's a much greater challenge, such as a national security challenge or a need for military partnership. These are some areas where humanitarian aid creates long-lasting, sometimes decades-long, trusted bonds between countries. Now, that is being called into question. Ultimately, we do not view where aid officially sits as the most important question. We view the outcomes, the quality of the aid. Does it adhere to humanitarian principles? Is the aid effective? Does it actually help the people that you intend to help and have the outcomes you want? And is the aid done in a manner that is smart for the U.S. taxpayer? So what's important right now for the U.S. policy debate is to remember that saving lives gains the U.S. dividends in countries for decades. It helps our relationships. Maintaining that capability is going to be essential, and the United States should do right by their partners and by the people that they've made promises to in countries because it's aligned with U.S. values and it's also an effective foreign policy measure. It's a way to show the U.S. as a reliable partner. To read the full white paper, What is Happening to U.S. Humanitarian Assistance? Will the United States continue to save lives? Please visit csis.org.